Hello, everybody, and welcome to GenFriends. I am your host, Sherry Hudson-Passy from Carolina Girl Genealogy, and we've got a great panel tonight. We've got Melissa Barker, the archive lady. She's joining us tonight. Hey, Melissa.
Hello, Sherry. So good to be here. Cannot wait to hear about this.
This is going to be a fun night. And we've got Shelley Murphy, the birthday girl.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Also known as Family Tree Girl, but it's her birthday tonight, and I'm just happy that she decided to join us.
It was hard to get there to 67.
You look fabulous.
You look great. You. Yeah. And we've got Christine Woodcock from Genealogy Tours of Scotland with us tonight. We're so glad to have you, Chris.
Hey.
You know what? This is going to be a great evening because Chris recently went on a trip and she with the history of the Mayflower, and she is going to tell us all about her trip, why she went, and the things that she learned, and encourage us to, get out of our comfort zones with our little, and take these big trips and go learn something and learn some history and learn about our people and just have a good time doing it. So I'm just going to say, you're on, Chris.
Yay. Thanks, Sherry. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. So, it was interesting when you talked about getting out of your comfort zone, because when the invitation about Mayflower came out, what they were looking for was a journalist to go on the trip and then to write an article and to promote it. And when it came out, I thought, oh my God, they want me to write about the Mayflower? You got to be kidding me. There are so many people who excel at that, and they want me to do it. So I'm like, I think you got the wrong person.
Oh no, they didn't. They knew just what they were doing.
And they're like, no, that's not what we want the article on. We want the article, we want you to come and see what we're doing. So the whole idea is they, next year, of course, is the 400th anniversary of the Mayflower leaving England and arriving in Plymouth. And there are a whole bunch of events planned on both sides of the Atlantic, both in England and in the east coast of North America, and also in Holland, in Leiden, because the Pilgrims spent some time there, and I'll share a bit of information about that as well. So they wanted me to come and see what is happening, what they have prepared, what they're planning, and then to go forth and tell. So, of course, I was ecstatic to do that. And they gave me sort of a sample, not a sample, but they gave me a timeline, a Mayflower timeline of where I could go. And I guess I didn't know that most people only pick one or two places. I thought, well, I'm there, I'll go do it. So I wound up going about 1,000 miles.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. And you know what, it's really interesting because I, of course, organize people going to Scotland, and to have that all done for me, I'm like, this is what my participants like. This is why they come back. All the work's done.
Exactly.
I just had to get up in the morning and go. It was great. It was fabulous. So yeah, it was really good. And I got VIP treatment the whole time, so that was kind of special as well.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. With the celebration coming up, I don't know if I've got any. I've not been able to find any Mayflower ancestors, but it makes me think, maybe I ought to just check again and make sure, because that would be so much fun to be part of that.
Well, the Mayflower left in 1620, and about 10 years later in 1630, 11 ships came simultaneously. So even if you weren't sort of an original Mayflower, you're probably one, quite well be one of those, a few that came in the first, because there were hundreds that came in the first decade.
Sure, yeah. And I know I do have some early people, but I just haven't connected any of them yet. So
yeah,
that would be fun. How about Melissa? Do you have any Mayflower people, or Shelley? Do you have any Mayflower people? Shelley does.
I've got Alden, Warren, Cook, and Howland. I think it's Howland. Alden, Warren, Cook, and it's either Howland or Howard. I think it's Howland. I have not researched totally on that line. It's from the Warden Family Association, where all of our from Peter 1, so-and-so, and all that. But yes, there's 4.
Yeah. Wow.
On mom's side of the family. Yeah.
That's
Nice.
great. Well, you can learn a lot of stuff here from Chris
Well,
tonight
I
about
was excited when I saw that because I haven't done anything. So
Oh.
that's why I thought, oh goodness, this would be great.
This will be fun. So tell us about your trip and show us some pictures and get us
So
excited.
I drove. I didn't want, because I knew I was going to drive, I didn't want to go into any of the London airports because driving out of the London airports was kind of above my comfort zone and not a skill that I really wanted to learn. So
So
road.
you drove from place to place. You didn't like take a bus or the train or anything. You actually drove.
I drove 1,000 miles.
Oh my gosh.
Goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. So I actually flew in. I asked if I could fly into Birmingham and then arrived there in the morning and got the car and took off immediately to Lincoln. And Lincoln was kind of cool. I spent, really, unfortunately, had I sort of thought it through a bit better, I didn't have enough time in all the places. Right? Well, that was really right. I'm like, oh, but I have to leave now and I have so much more I want to see and do. But I'm sure,
But that happens even, you stay a place 2 or 3
anywhere.
days. I mean, anywhere
Yeah.
you go, that happens. Right.
Yeah. And I'm used to, we started doing big road trips with the kids back. My mom passed away when my daughter was 4. And I remember saying to my husband, all that's left when we leave here are memories and we need to start making them. And so we
That's a
took
good
big
point.
family road trips. And so I always did a lot of research around what was there that we could see because you might never go that way again. Right. And so I had a blast putting the ideas together for the Mayflower 400. So I went to Lincoln. Yep.
How long was your trip before you go?
8 days.
8 days. Okay. Now we'll see what happened in that 1,000 miles. Because I'm trying to figure out, well, if I ever do this, how long do I need to book it? I'm not driving though.
Yeah. So you'll need a little bit longer for train schedules and stuff.
Yeah.
So I went, and one of the things that I got to see, I can't take photographs of it, unfortunately. When I was in Lincoln Cathedral, they have the Magna Carta, the 1215, 1217, 1215 edition of the Magna Carta. They have it in a glass case. So it belongs to the cathedral, but it's actually housed next door in a purpose-built room in the castle, just because they have a purpose-built room. And then I also, right in with that, in that same room was the Charter of the Forests, which was the king telling people what they could and couldn't do in the forests around England, which was kind of interesting.
That would be interesting.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Wonder what was going on in
And there.
Those rowdy English people in the forest.
Yeah.
They tried to tell me it had to do with hunting, but I'm not so sure.
That's too funny.
And then I got to talk to the person who is on the coordinating committee for Lincoln. And so all of the communities that had to do with the Mayflower are starting off this year in October or November. There's a kickoff, and they start with what they call Illuminate, which is an evening light festival sort of thing. And that's sort of the beginning of their year to start celebrating and honoring the ancestors that left. Yeah, so it was kind of cool. And she also has talked about doing a Thanksgiving feast. And she wanted to have 102 people come because there were 102 people on the Mayflower. And she would charge £20, 20 pence for the year 2020. And then have food that would have been available in the 1600s. So I thought that was really cool.
Oh, wow.
That is cool. That is
really cool.
Well, it'd be really cool if she could find a descendant from each of those people.
Yeah, I think that's what she's wanting to do.
Yeah, and have them come.
So, Shelley, you've got like
amazing.
between now and October to find me a Mayflower ancestor.
Do you have? You don't know if you have any?
I don't have any. But I want
to gotta take care of that.
I want to be at that dinner.
So you're going in between? Okay.
No, just.
Well, we still need to find you one.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen here and show you some photos.
Please do.
So this was, so the next day I went, so that evening I went to Immingham, and I loved Immingham. It's a very small place.
Hey, Chris,
But
we're not seeing it.
you're not seeing my screen?
Not seeing it.
No,
it worked.
I didn't hit the right button.
There it is.
There we go.
Process. It's a two-part process.
Okay.
So in Immingham, so there was a group of separatists who weren't happy with the way the church was, continuing to be Catholic in a lot of their rituals. And they wanted it to be much more simple. We know them as Puritans. Some of them were, the people who were true Puritans stayed within the church trying to make change from inside. Those who had enough wanted to actually separate from the church altogether. And so they had arranged to go to Boston, which is also in Lincolnshire, and get on a boat and head out to Holland, where things were a bit more lax and they could have a bit more religious freedom. However, the captain of the ship that they, well, not a ship, but a boat, the captain of the boat alerted the authorities that they were coming. And so when they got on board, he called the authorities, and the authorities came in and arrested everybody.
Oh, he snitched.
He did snitch. Yeah. So they wound up being imprisoned. So the 7 ringleaders were imprisoned in the Guildhall in Boston. I'll talk about that in a minute. And the rest of them were basically let go. So they started to walk north again to where they had come from, and they ended up in a little place called Immingham. And they got word again that the authorities were after them. So they had to make sort of a last-minute decision, and all of the men got on a boat and went to Leiden, leaving the women and children behind. Mm. And so the women and children walked up from the bank, found a church that had a large portico, and they stayed in there for shelter. Wow. So Immingham, and I agree, Immingham sees itself sort of as, the beginning of the story, because that's actually where they left the country. Even though they didn't come to America, they left the country and went to Leiden in Holland from there. So I think that was kind of cool. So then I made my way the next day down to Boston Guildhall, and the Guildhall fascinated me, absolutely fascinated me. It was, a lot of the Guildhalls we're used to with tradespeople. So, the weavers will have a Guildhall, and the jewelers and blacksmiths, all that kind of stuff, they have the trade hall. So the Guildhall, this Guildhall was a religious Guildhall.
Okay, are you showing us a different picture?
No, but I will in a second.
Okay, let me know. That way we'll know if you put another one up and it doesn't show us.
Okay.
So we'll know the.
So what they were doing was they were donating money to this guild, and in exchange they were getting prayers to have their soul kept out of purgatory when they died.
Okay.
So they wound up, So they wound up actually donating everything they had, right? Because the more money they gave,
sure.
And so it wound up becoming a very wealthy guild. And then Henry VIII decided enough was enough. He shut down all the charities, started the incorporation. He incorporated Boston in 1545. And this is part of the documentation. Everything had to be handed over to the Corporation of Boston. They couldn't keep it anymore. So this was one of the photos. Let me see if I can. This is a 9-foot scroll. Can you see that?
Yes.
So this is a 9-foot scroll, and it's double-sided, and it is an inventory of all of the holdings that Boston Guildhall had.
Wow.
So that they had a record of what they had handed over to the corporation.
That's amazing.
And of course, he pulled the drawer out, and my eyes lit up. He goes, "Oh, you like documents?"
He did not know who he was talking to.
So this is for Melissa. Melissa, that seal is the Great Seal of Henry VIII.
Oh,
wow. Love it.
And that is the charter to make Boston. It was for the Charter of Incorporation of Boston.
So awesome.
Yeah, and they part of the corporation, the charter was to allow a market. The market was to take place twice a week on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and that was in 1545. And to this day, that's the 2 market days for Boston.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
That is so cool.
That is so cool.
And then I have to ask, that is in Mylar. sitting in a map cabinet, correct?
In a what?
That's
In
what
a
it
map
looked like
cabinet
to me.
or a flat files cabinet?
Yeah.
It was a drawer. Yeah, a drawer. Yeah, yeah.
So this kind of fascinated me too. This is a chest, and it's made out of one piece of wood. It weighed a ton to try and open it. And it's all hinged, and it's got iron on the outside. And that's where they used to keep documents before they had actual archives.
That's the pre-archives.
That's the pre-archives. That's the ancestor of the archives.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. And then they also had, this is a, what they call a linen fold door. And then when you opened it up, they had a cabinet, and they had some documents and stuff in there as well.
Oh.
So neat.
So that's
Love,
kind
love,
of
love.
airtight too.
It is. So was
Yeah.
the other one. I mean, you couldn't, if that lid had slammed shut, you were inside, you'd have been dead in no time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I had said to you that the men were imprisoned while they were there. They were imprisoned for a month. And that's what they stayed in. That was their
Oh
cell.
my goodness. All of them in one cell? Do you
No, I think they had,
or do they have different cells?
yeah, they had a couple of cells. So there was, I think,
Okay.
2 or 3 of them in each. But, people didn't really, they had a lot of sympathy for them. And so the way that their understanding of from what they've read, primarily from Edward Winslow, or not Edward Winslow, John Bradford, he did a lot of writing. His take on it was that they were very, very well treated while they were there. And so the understanding is that they needed to be in jail in the daytime when people were around, but they basically had run of the first floor when nobody was there.
Ah.
And
That's interesting.
right next to this is a spiral staircase, which takes you up into the courtroom.
Oh.
So that was kind of
Oh,
fascinating.
so they
too.
just kind of send them right downstairs?
Right downstairs.
Wow. And is there a bathroom in there? Is that a
No, honey, I
hole
don't
that
think any.
we're seeing?
I don't.
You know what I mean? Like
I don't think they had bathrooms back then.
not bathrooms. I'm talking about where the hole is in the
The hole in the floor?
yeah,
Not
like
noticeably.
the outhouse type thing. Because even now today, some places only have, modern, of course, would have the toilet. But back then, I thought it was still the wooden box, and it was the hole under, like the outhouse, even in the old prison.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's what I was asking.
It was inside that cell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can see the 2 cells there to the left, and
Yeah.
then the staircase takes them up into the
Oh,
courtroom.
yes.
Wow.
And that building is from the 1300s.
And it's still there.
And it's still there.
Wow.
And it's massive. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the cool thing about going to Europe and, these countries, because you
Everything's
see
still there.
Everything is still there, and
Yeah.
it's so old, and the history just
You just reach out and
speaks
touch
to
it.
you.
I mean,
Yeah,
look at, you can even
absolutely.
see the beams back in here. Look,
Mhm.
exposed
Mhm.
beams. Like, it's amazing.
And they're like 12 inches or 16 inches or something.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
That is so interesting.
And they're narrow. So you'd always know you're in an older home,
Yeah.
because the steps are narrow and they go up.
Yeah. So then from Boston, I made my way to, I eventually ended up in Canterbury.
Mhm.
And had a tour of the cathedral, which was
Yes.
absolutely beyond, honestly, absolutely beyond words.
Yeah,
So
it's
this
beautiful.
was,
I did get to go there when I was a teenager, so it's something else. Oh,
that's the shrine they have for where Thomas Becket was murdered.
goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, incredible, honestly.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I really thought was interesting when I was in Canterbury was the place that I went for dinner was a place called the Parrot. And the Parrot is, again, still around from like the 1300s or something. I don't know if I have a picture of it here. Yeah, there it is. It was at night, so it wasn't a very good picture. So that's the Parrot. And the restaurant is on the main floor. And then upstairs, so it was actually like a hostelry.
Okay.
And upstairs is just like a big open room, and you can actually rent that out for private parties and stuff. But what fascinated me was this. So this is the upstairs. You can see the timbers,
Oh, yes.
right?
Wow.
And in the very end, they have this, which is this area right here is called a priest hole. And that's where the priests would come and hide to get away from the king's men.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's just amazing.
I know. Of course, I wanted to climb up in it, but.
Yeah. I can see the picture of you now.
Help, I'm stuck.
Somebody get me down.
Somebody get me down. Yeah. So also when I was in when I was in Canterbury, they had I went to it was called 1 Pound Lane. So this is it here. And it's the jail. So there's a big gate, like a walled area, gate into the city. And the jail, of course, is built into the gate, as it is in most of the old medieval towns. And this is where Robert Cushman was imprisoned. So Robert Cushman was the person who made the agreement with Christopher Jones to take the group to, well, they were supposed to be going to Virginia, but to take the group to America. And he wound up being imprisoned for printing libelous pamphlets against the church. And so he was imprisoned until he abjured, which means, okay, I didn't really mean it. Yeah, I've changed my beliefs. And so after about a week, he decided to speak to the judge and say, okay, it was just a brain cramp. He was over it now. Because he wanted
to get you out of jail, and then you can go do what you want to do.
And this was the room that he was in. He wanted to be able to get married.
Oh.
And you can't really do that while you're in jail.
When you're in jail.
Well, they do now.
They do now, that's true.
Oh my goodness, too funny. And then I made my way down south along the coast. So I was in Dartmouth. I guess Southampton I went to first, right? Yeah, let me do that again. So I went to Southampton, and of course that's where the boat left from, right? So most people, I think, when they go to do sort of a Mayflower thing, they all stay along the South Coast. And I have nothing against the South Coast. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's my kind of place because it's quaint little villages on the ocean. However, if you really want to go and see where your Mayflower ancestors came from, you need to be up in the north, because the South is where they left. It's not where they actually originated. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So this is, Southampton, as we know, is the major port, but they have all of these tunnels underneath the ground. And these were actually wine cellars. Wow. These were filled with wine. Yeah. So wine was one of the more profitable exports, imports and exports, because they would import from France and then export out from there. And those are still there. You can still go down in there, right? This is an old Tudor home from the 12 or 1300s. It's still there. It's under renovation at the moment, actually.
And it almost looks a little Dutch, or
very European,
with that stucco look in the wood.
Yeah. A Duke of Wellington. And so then, of course, what happened in Southampton was that they left, and here's the Mayflower thing is right across. They have
how cool.
Isn't that cute? Weather vane.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and it's actually part of the memorial. They have so these are all so that's sitting on top of a tower, and this is like to John Alden. This is to the Pilgrim Fathers, and this is all the way around, right? But excuse me, once they left, they wound up the Speedwell had come from Leiden with the people who had gone to Leiden, and then the Mayflower was taking, so the Mayflower was taking people who really were going for economic reasons. I'm going to show you my view from the Southampton Hotel.
I'm wondering if Southampton, Virginia is after.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it
Yes.
is.
Yes, it would be. It would
Uh-huh.
be.
Oh,
So, what was I saying?
your view.
The
Yeah,
view.
yeah. No, so the Speedwell had come from Leiden with the Puritans and the Separatists, and then people were leaving from England via Southampton on the Mayflower to come and just kind of do better than what they were, right? It was sort of people who were in a place where they wanted to take a gamble and do better, and it was a lot of merchants and economic people and that kind of stuff, and their families. So they get in the boat and they get a little bit down past into the ocean, and they spring a leak. The Speedwell springs a leak, and so they ended up then going to having to stop in at Dartmouth.
Huh.
And Dartmouth, so they actually, this is where they were in Bayard's Cove. They came in here. Isn't that pretty?
That was pretty.
That is so pretty.
Gorgeous.
So they
And
actually
look how the houses are built.
out on the hill.
Yeah.
So there, and that's the river, and then it goes out into that's the Dart River, and it goes out into the ocean. And so, and this is sort of a natural bay, and they moored in there. Well, the Mayflower moored in there, and the Speedwell was taken in for repairs, and then they left on that again to go. And it's also Dartmouth. Dartmouth is the place where Thomas Newcomen was from, and he and James Watt invented the steam engine.
Wow.
In 1712. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Ooh,
that
look
is
at that
amazing.
church.
So this is the John Flavel Church, and John Flavel was a separatist, and he preached in there. This is the original, one of the original parts of the harbor. And so it's still there. All these buildings are original.
Wow.
Oh, the window.
I can't even imagine standing there and you just think about this is what they saw, and,
And it was normal to them.
Yeah. So I was in this little back lane, and it was kind of interesting because I guess at one time it was the lane that you didn't go in. It was full of crime and corruption. But all the sailors coming up, sailors always give everybody a bad name anyway. So they had all along that lane, they had taverns and bawdy houses and that kind of stuff. And then he's pointing because if the police were after them, they would jump out the window at the top and just run down the lane.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah. He was hilarious, actually. So these people were my guide.
Oh, wow.
They're cute.
He's actually the town crier as well. So.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of cool. And then from there, I made my way to Plymouth. So Plymouth is not very far, just a few miles down the road from Dartmouth. And by the time it got to Plymouth, it had once again sprung a leak.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
they needed a new ship.
No kidding, no kidding. Well, and then actually, what happened was they left. They all got on the Mayflower. They left the Speedwell, and they all got on the Mayflower, and they came to. They were supposed to come to Virginia because of the weather. They ended up in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and I'm just looking because. They have the stairs, so they're reconstructing the stairs at the moment. So that's actually, you can go there and right where the Plymouth stairs are. Oh, they're there right there. So they have,
wow.
So yeah, I mean, the reason that they're doing this is because they're expecting a whole lot of people come next year, and they didn't want them all falling into the drink because they were. It's a liability thing.
Oh,
so they were all covered in this green moss, right? And made it very, very slippery.
Yeah.
So they didn't want people falling in. So yeah, so that'll all be restored for.
I'm thinking, you've got these two ships and you're going, and then suddenly everybody from one ship's got to get on your ship.
Exactly.
It's so crowded.
It's so crowded. So crowded. Yeah, unbelievable.
And I'm sure the people on the Mayflower who were originally on there were like, oh.
Well,
people.
I think both of them, right? Because they both had very different ideals.
Sure.
and very different goals and values. And now suddenly they're all together. And they were together for 66 days. They couldn't even make it from Southampton to Plymouth without having to stop twice. I can't imagine.
Right. I can't either.
I can't either.
Can't,
and also, I think about the food being cooked on the ship.
well, you have to make sure that it didn't rot too, right?
Right. And what water were they drinking, or were they? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Because
Yeah,
they can't drink the ocean water.
Nope, because it's all salted. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Plymouth, from what they call Plymouth Hoe, which there's the stairs again. You can see them right here.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing with the Hoe is actually just a big open field. And
is that housing or
it is housing?
both?
It's housing.
These
are houses.
on the
Both.
bottom, or all housing, all levels?
Both. So it's a combination.
Okay.
The Royal Military College is in Plymouth as well. So that was kind of fascinating. Then they had, I don't think I have a picture of it here. They have a building called the Emigration House. Mm-hmm. And it really fascinated me because it was where they take people to wait to come to America. So we have them here. Oh, there it is. We have them here, and this is still an original building. So we would have an immigration facility here where we would have people come off the boat and we would process them.
Right.
They had them there where they could go and wait, and they would get medical care while they were there. They would make sure that they had appropriate clothing. They would get all their questions answered, make sure that they were really ready for their journey. And that is still it's not used as an immigration house now, but it is still there. So. And then, not related to the Mayflower at all, but I had, as I was doing my reading, I said I would really like to get to Cornwall, to Bodmin Moor, to see the Jamaica Inn. So this Jamaica Inn, honestly, just absolutely fascinated me. The Jamaica Inn is from the 1700s. And it was, at the time, it was an inn as well. And it's where all the smugglers used to go and meet.
Oh,
that would be fun.
So fun. And
but that building, is that brick?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's the original building. This is a little bit later, but it's like maybe 50 years or so later. It's not modern. And Daphne du Maurier spent some time there, and she wrote a book called The Jamaica Inn from there.
Oh, okay.
So it was all very, atmospheric. It was absolutely fabulous. Yeah.
Why'd they call it the Jamaica Inn?
Well, so people thought that it was because they were smuggling Jamaican rum, and they may well have been, but it was actually because the landowner's name was Jamaica.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But I'm going to go with the rum one because I like that story better.
Makes it much more colorful, doesn't it?
It does, right?
Yes.
It does. And then they had they have two tiny little museums there. And one of them is to Daphne du Maurier. And then they have this one as well, which fascinated me, of course. It's really just a single room. This is the ways that they would smuggle. So this is a tortoise shell, and they would fill it up with goods.
Oh my goodness.
Just enough for a couple bottles?
Yeah. This was a fire bucket, and it had a false bottom in it. So they would fill that full of whatever they were smuggling.
Oh my goodness.
That was cut into a book.
Wow.
So they had stuff inside the book.
Is that sugar?
Yeah. Today it would be cocaine, but then it was sugar. And this is how they brought tropical birds back. So these are birds inside nylons, women's nylons.
Oh my gosh.
How did they keep them alive? Oh,
Well, they could
the
breathe
air.
through yeah.
Wow.
What I want to know is, how did they keep them quiet?
Yeah, really?
Well, they probably put I can't say rubber band, but wrap something, to keep their beats.
Oh my gosh.
That's kind of bad.
And then they had all these, and then they had a woman's girdle, and they had all kinds of little pockets and stuff.
Well, we recognize that. Wow.
Ladies' corset.
Don't they always look uncomfortable in those
Very.
old?
Yeah, especially if you're smuggling stuff. Think about
they're stuffing that stuff up in their skirt. You guys are laughing. I'm serious.
Oh, goodness. And then my very last place to visit, and this one really fascinated me as well, was Berkeley Castle. So Berkeley Castle is just north of Bristol, and I had the honor of having Charles Barkley as my private tour guide. Charles is the 27th descendant of the original owner.
Wow.
Yeah. So here's the piece there's two pieces in here that are really fascinating. I mean, he was so gracious with his time. And it was kind of interesting because as he was going through, they've got these massive, massive portraits on the wall like any castle does, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they were his ancestors, and he was telling me their story. So his family history is on the walls of a castle. Like, it's just, yeah. Anyway, so the part that really kind of made me sit up and take notice was when we were over here at the dungeon. In this room,
sit up and take notice.
It would make you sit up.
Yeah, inside the dungeon was King Edward II, and King Edward II was murdered there.
Wow.
So the story is, and for whatever reason, right, treason, I didn't really pay attention to that. I was more into the macabre, which is that he apparently was a gay man, and that was sort of known but not really talked about. Well, I think a lot of them were back then. And so the people who wound up killed him in this room, and they did so apparently by taking a red hot poker and ramming it up his backside.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And when I heard that, I thought, wait a second, I've heard that story before.
I have too.
Do you know why? Do you remember Courtney Cox?
Yes, I was just going to say, wasn't that who do you think you are?
Yes.
That's where I heard it.
It was her ancestor that was part of killing him.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
When you started the whole thing about the castle, I think, wait. I know this story.
Well, the poker,
wow.
but the castle and stuff I remembered. By the way, Who Do You Think You Are is coming back, of course. We all know.
Yeah. Yes.
On NBC this time. On NBC this time.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Back to NBC.
So I was reading up on the Courtney Cox episode, and she actually was in Berkeley Castle and went through the papers because they have a massive, I think he said they've got 20,000 documents in their archival collection. And of course, you're welcome to go and look at that with a bit of notice. So.
Oh, wow. Melissa's like, I need to take a field trip.
I know, right? Yeah, absolutely fascinating. And then the other part that fascinated me was there was a church on the grounds. Now the family are Catholic, so they didn't actually worship in this church. This church was worshipped in by the people on the estate.
Now, are those the what do they call them? The cavern caskets or graves?
Tabletop.
Do they call them
tabletop? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's one in Charlottesville, and it looks like a half of a barrel.
Yeah.
And it's got brick in the inside. And I'm trying to think of the name of it, but we were trying to find some history on that, to who made them, what was the purpose of them, and I just couldn't find anything.
The tabletop ones in New Orleans.
Well, I know, but this was like a half of a barrel.
We've got some of those in some of the older South Carolina cemeteries too, and I don't know. That'd be fabulous to just figure that out and know why.
I couldn't find much on the internet, but brick was in the inside, so they repaired it, kind of restored it, because they were doing a whole restoration of the cemetery. And it was an old cemetery, and they found that there's over 1,000 graves in there.
Oh my God.
And unbelievable. Yeah.
Well, what church was that then? If it wasn't, was it just Church of England or what?
Yes.
It was Church of England.
Church of England. Okay, what is that you're showing?
So I'm just about to tell you. So this is the wall that goes around the church.
Okay.
And inside the wall here is the church and also the cemetery. And this little building is on the outside. And the man who was the minister at that church was Reverend Jenner. And Reverend Jenner's son, Edward, invented the smallpox vaccine.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
And Edward used this building, and they call it the Vaccinaria. And he inoculated all of the local children.
Wow. In that building. Wow.
In that building. Isn't that cool?
Oh, that is so cool.
That is so cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
History's
yeah,
fascinating. History's fascinating, isn't it?
I know. I know. And just to be able to reach out and touch it, and
Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say, did
Oh,
you
yeah.
get to touch anything?
it was incredible.
Chris, that was wonderful. What a trip. What a wonderful, wonderful and learning experience. And thank you for sharing it with us too, because there's a lot of things that, you know, we as Americans, you know, I don't know what in Canada, how much, what y'all learned about, you know, the Mayflower, but we focus just on, they landed at Plymouth Rock and, you know, all that. We don't really hear about beforehand too much, you know? And so
right got here. Yeah.
And so to think about what they were going through and how they got on, you know, the Mayflower and what led them here. I mean, we know why they were coming, but just to see those photos and to see it just makes it so much more real. You know, it always does. It always does. When you go to where your ancestors lived or where you go to any kind of history site, it just makes it more real. And for me, it makes me go, what were my ancestors doing
Yes.
during that time? And were they, if they weren't there at those spots, were they hearing about it were they reading about it in the newspapers? How did these things affect their lives? And so what an incredible, incredible trip you had.
Yeah.
And you went by yourself?
I did go by myself.
Wow.
I love it.
You are one amazing
Then you're on your
person.
own time. You know. But what about the food and stuff? Because it seemed like you were going not huge cities, but little villages somewhat, or were they pretty big cities you were at?
Well, they were well established. I mean, and I was fortunate because I didn't have to think about it. I just had to show up at the restaurant and it was all done for me.
Oh, so they had that planned out for you at least. That's
good. I mean, I didn't, I got to pick off the menu, but I didn't have to think, oh, where am I going to go tonight? I just showed, this is where you're going to be. And
okay, that's good. That's
good. So it was kind of cool. Although by the end of it, I was done with French food.
But
I could eat seafood forever, but the French stuff, I'm like, not so much.
Really funny because she's telling us about this trip to England, and then she throws out, "I'm tired of French food."
What? So how was the beer?
Well, I actually stopped at. They have service areas, like you guys do for. With gas and stuff, and found a place where I could get a Cornish pasty. I'm thinking, this is what I want.
That's what you want. Exactly.
Comfort food.
Anything different or odd that you tried that you had not tried before?
Food? For food? No, I don't think so. No.
Okay.
No. I'm not real.
Well, you've been to Scotland too.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not real adventurous.
No. Meat, potatoes, root vegetables.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do haggis and I do black pudding. So if you can eat that, you can eat pretty well.
I was going to say, that's adventurous enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Ew.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ew. Well, thank you. I sure appreciate it. This was wonderful. Did anybody have any other questions they want to ask about this trip before we say goodnight? It was wonderful.
It was good.
I learned so much, and I loved seeing those. I wanted to reach out. I wanted to reach out and touch the walls and
there was
breathe
other
the air
pictures I could see. I wanted to see.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. Oh, so fabulous.
Sherry, if I could just put a shout out for anybody who is interested, who has Mayflower ancestors or wants to know more about them.
Please do.
The website is mayflower400.org.
Mayflower400.org. Oh, that's
and then
wonderful.
all of those places you can click on. There's a whole list of them. They're all hyperlinked, and it'll give you the listing of what all the events are in the area.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing that with us. I'm sure that so many people are going to be interested, and like me, I think a lot of people are going to go, oh, maybe I do have a Mayflower ancestor, and I just haven't been focusing on that right now. I've been doing other things, so that might have to be a priority.
Yeah.
maybe I could make it to the dinner. I don't know. That'd be great. And then I'd be taking pictures going, hey, Chris.
Hey, here's me.
Anyway, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here, everybody, and we appreciate you watching GenFriends. Until next time, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.